One of the great things about Fibonacci Trader Galactic Trader is the ability that it provides to customize the look and feel of the screen. There are a couple of icons that we want to be aware of that help us do this at the top. The one is the little ruler, square ruler icon, and the other is the illustration of the different types of price bars. Let's click on that one on the right, the price bar one, and it will give us some of the options that we have for changing the way a chart looks on the screen. First of all, we'll look over here in this section called Bar Types, and we can change this if we prefer to be looking at candlestick charts, for example. It will automatically bring up the candlesticks, with the chart display, or we can go to a line chart if we prefer that, for example, and convert just all this to prices at the close and give us the line chart display. We can even do volumetric bars, in which the width of the daily bar is determined by the amount of volume of shares traded on a daily basis. Or we can have our choice of high-low close or open high-low close bars as well. So let's go back to open high-low close bars on the chart. We also have the bars in memory factor here. The default is 700, and we can set that for a much higher level if we choose, if we have adequate computer memory to do that. I'm going to set this for 7,000 because I've got lots of RAM on my computer, and this will enable me to display longer time frames on the chart and to look at longer range trends with the stock. In addition to that, we can change the color of the background and the color of the bars. For example, if we want to keep our black background and change to a different colored bars, say we prefer white bars on black, that'll make that change automatically, and they'll shift to white. Or we can go to any other color that we choose, including a wide range of custom color options here. So we can have bars that suit our color preferences. Let's change the background color. Some people don't like to look at the black background. We can shift this to white, for example, and again, any color option that you would like there. Obviously, with the white background, the yellow bars don't show up very well, so let's just switch those to black and do black on white to make it look like a chart in the newspaper. And we can save all that by clicking OK. An interesting thing has happened here. We've got the current price showing over on the right, but all the intermediate prices in our price bars disappeared because they are showing up in white, and white on white doesn't read very well. To change that, we'll go to the chart scale parameters, the little ruler bars here. And we can change from an automatic to a fixed scale if we prefer to look at a different size chart, use a logarithmic scale if that's what we want to use. In this case, we're simply concerned with the font that is being displayed. And here we see the color is selected as white, and we'll change this to black so they'll show up a little more plainly. We click OK, and then our prices pop in here on the right-hand side of the chart. One more thing we want to be aware of, the ability to change the look of the chart on the fly is very strong. These two bars, or two icons here, will enable us to increase or decrease the width of the price bar. Simply by clicking on it, we can get a wider bar. We can go very, very thick if we want to use this for a slide presentation or to show an audience. It's nice to have this as a feature. For regular use, we'll probably keep it down to a thinner bar kind of increment. These other two icons allow us to increase or decrease the number of bars displayed on the screen. We, a moment ago, set our default for a number of bars in memory at a higher level. So by clicking on this, we can increase the number of bars shown on the screen at a given time and get a little longer range perspective of what this particular stock has done by clicking on that. And of course, we can go back the other way and decrease and show a shorter time span as well. So these are some of the features that will let you modify the look and feel of the program to have the charts work for you in a more comfortable fashion. One of the most powerful tools available in Fibonacci Galactic Trader is the creation of planetary lines, and there are a couple of ways of getting into this. We have this icon here with the blue and red lines crossing on it. We can also go into the planets pull-down menu and select planetary lines. The icon is repeated there. Let's go in this way. And what this does is bring up a two-part window. We're looking at a chart here for the Frankfurt DAX index, always with these smaller windows that will indicate what we're creating the lines for, what the specific chart is. The lower half gives us a list of all the various options that are available in terms of the planetary lines. Let's take, for example, a Mars line here, and we'll double-click on the Mars line, and this pops it up into the top portion of the window, the top side. We can highlight that. We can either double-click on it, or we can click on Edit, and it will allow us to change the specific parameters of the line. We can present the line heliocentrically or geocentrically, and this is a toggle. All we have to do is click on it, and it will toggle over. Let's put it in geocentric reckoning here. And we can use universal clock divisions. This is the division of the 360-degree wheel by another number that will give us an increment of that wheel. And we can specify any division we want here. Let's look at the actual position of Mars in the sky. And in order to do that, we will divide the 360 by 360. That will give us a factor there that will allow us to see the current position of Mars at any point. Then we're not going to mirror the line or change the factor at this point. While we're still in this editing screen, we want to be aware that we have various options available here for changing the way the line looks on the screen. For example, with color, we can click on the color bar and select a different color for the Mars line that will appear on the screen. And there's an infinite number of color options here, but we'll leave it set on red, which is a good color for Mars. We can also change the style of the line itself, change it to a dotted or dashed line with different lengths of dashes and spaces between the dashes. We can change the thickness of the line as well, and alter the look and feel of it in that manner. So we'll make it just a little bit thicker here and exit there. So we have our Mars line set up, and we can do the same thing with other planetary lines. We can add a wide variety of lines to the chart, but to keep things simple and to illustrate how this works, we will simply exit at this point. The exit is the key for saving our settings and returning to the main chart window. So we exit, and the Mars line pops in. Now we can see that there's some correspondence here at certain points in the price history in which the DAX index has tracked the Mars line quite nicely. But what we might want to do is look for places where we find a greater level of correspondence. In order to do that, we can go back in at any time and edit the planetary lines that we've already entered. All we do is click, and it will bring up the editing window that we saw before automatically, and we can go back in and alter the parameters. For example, I may not like the thickness of the line here. It's looking a little bit too bold to me, so what I'll do is change the thickness from 2 down to 1 on the chart, and we're going to alter the factor here as well. The factor will run from a -2 through 0 all the way up to a +2. So let's try a +1 to see what this does to the line. We'll hit exit here, and as you notice, this makes it less apropos for this particular chart. The line becomes more vertical, so essentially we're going in the wrong direction. What we're hoping to do is to be able to display Mars in a way that allows us to hit more tops and bottoms in this chart to see if there is a correspondence. So we definitely don't want a positive factor. We'll go to a negative factor. Let's go to the other extreme here. We'll put in a -2 on this, and we'll click exit again. And this brings up a huge number of lines, so that this is essentially totally meaningless. We've got correspondences with virtually every single point on the price chart, so this is not giving us useful information. We'll go back in and edit one more time. We'll change the -2 to a -1 and exit and see what we got there. This is a little bit more useful. We can see here that the DAX, in fact, is finding significant support and resistance at various increments of the Mars line through much of its trading history. There seems to be a significant correlation with a planetary line. There's certainly times when it will violate that support and resistance, and as we can see now, it's breaking through a Mars line, has worked its way through, and is headed upward from there. But this will give us some useful information that we can combine with other technical factors in analyzing this stock. So this then is the basic procedure for setting up planetary price lines. We can go back and repeat it for additional planets. We can delete Mars and bring in different ones, and use trial and error to see what works well with a particular price chart that we're looking at. But the planetary price line feature is one of the keys to the effective use of the Galactic Trader module with the Fibonacci Trader. In addition to the many on-screen technical analysis features that Fibonacci Galactic Trader includes, there are also some items that are not so readily apparent that can give us important information that we can use in analyzing stock prices. For example, we have this little icon here that looks like a page from a notebook, and it's really a database here. If we click on it, it will give us a list of company data, the names and stock trading symbols of a variety of publicly traded companies. We can scroll down and get a sense of just how many are included in the database. We're looking right now at a chart for IBM and have daily data there from late 2001 until the spring of 2005 on the screen. So let's take a look at IBM in this database and see what the data looks like. We can scroll down to the I's, or we can use the computer keyboard and simply type the letter I, and it will take us down to the beginning of the I listings. And in fact, IBM is the first one in the list. If we mouse over that, we'll see that we have an indication of what's there in the list. It pops up the data for us automatically, so that we don't even need to go further if all we're doing is looking for quick reference. This shows us that IBM was incorporated on June 16, 1911, and the first date of the first trade of the stock was February 14, 1924. If we right-click the mouse on the name of the company, by right-clicking here, we'll pull up this little window that gives us some of the things that we can do with the database. The top section here enables us to add a new name to the database. If we want to add a stock to the list, we can do so there, or we can go back and edit a listing if we need to make changes for any reason, or of course delete a stock if we have one that has been merged or is no longer publicly traded, what have you. Below that we have show the incorporation chart for the stock, and we can show the first trade chart. Let's click on first trade, and it pops it up in a small window. It's a little hard to see, so we will immediately maximize that. And this is the horoscope or chart wheel for the first trade of IBM. The upper left-hand corner shows us the stock symbol and the date of the chart that we're looking at. We should first of all be aware that we're really looking at two astrological dynamics here. The inner circle, the inner wheel, is the first trade data for the company from February of 1924. The outer ring shows us the current planetary positions. These are what we call in astrology the transiting planets. And we have on the left here a listing of each of the planets with the names in different colors, and then where it says first, this will show us the first trade positions and the transit or the current positions. In the lower left-hand corner we have the declinations, which is the vertical dimension, if you will, of the alignments of all the planets as well for the first trade data and for the transiting data. There are a number of options available here with the charts. We'll click on the options box and we'll get a drop-down menu. Try chart simply allows us to add an additional or third wheel to the diagram, and we have a choice of more advanced astrological techniques that we can use here if we choose to add a third wheel for even more detailed analysis of what's going on in the astrology of the company. The house system simply refers to two alternative ways of dividing up the wheel. The default is set for Placidus. A lot of astrologers prefer the Koch system, so let's click on Koch and we'll set it for that. Below house system, we have the choice of to show houses or not. We click this and it realigns the wheels. The inner wheel now is set for the exact time of day of the first trade, and the outer wheel as well. For most purposes, however, it's better to have these two corresponding, so what we'll do is click Use Natal Ascendant. The natal in this case is the first trade chart, and we're going to match the outer planets here to the positions of the natal wheel, so it'll realign this outer ring when we click on that, and it gives us the current positions of the outer planets as compared with the natal planets. There's a final option at the bottom that says Show Angles on Charts, and this will change the way that the chart symbols are displayed. We have, by default, the abbreviations for the various planets on the chart. NE for Neptune, SU for Sun, VE for Venus, and so forth in the chart diagram. By clicking on Show Angles on Charts, we can toggle over to little colored circles to represent the various planets. Now notice what happens here in the upper left-hand corner of the screen as we mouse over one. We're pointing at the green circle here, and it says Uranus. It gives us the geocentric position in the zodiacal notation and also in the 360 degree notation. And we can do this for each of the planets in turn for either the outer or the inner rings, and we can know exactly which thing refers to what planet and get some detail on that. And this is very helpful if we don't have a background in astrology and are getting confused by the terminology. For now, let's switch it back to the abbreviations for the planets. And we want to be aware as well that there are a couple of options available over on the right-hand corner of the screen. The word geocentric is in a reddish color here. We click on that and it will toggle over to heliocentric charts. So if we want a sun-based system, heliocentric charts, we can get that on the screen, and then with one click go back to geocentric, which is what we generally prefer in our stock market work, since the stocks are traded on Earth here. We have as well the date that the transiting planets are set for. This is the current date. We can simply click on that and it will pop up a calendar window for us that will enable us to change the date of the transiting planets, of the outer ring planets, to anything we like. We can go to a previous year, a past year, or to a future date if we wish, and change the date and of course the month, and pick the day that we would like to have displayed. The final option here in the upper right hand corner says Houses On. We can click on that to Houses Off, and this is exactly the same thing that we saw over here under Options where it says Show Houses. So we really have two ways of toggling back and forth between the houses displayed or having them not displayed on the chart wheel. We're going to leave the houses on here because this is one of the things we're interested in, is seeing where these outer planets align. The real question is, why do we even look at this in the first place? And what we're concerned with are factors that might impact the price of the stock in current times. We notice here, for example, that Saturn is at 21 degrees of Cancer, and this is lining up with this angle of the first trade chart. This is the nadir of the chart, the fourth house cusp, or the IC of the first trade horoscope, and Saturn is sitting right on that particular power point in this chart. So we would suspect then from a cursory examination that perhaps Saturn would have a role to play in current price action in the stock. And so what we'll do is simply close this out and test a Saturn line then. We'll close down the company list here. with our display of price data. Of course, to get to Planetary Lines, we use this little icon here, or we can use the drop-down menu under Planets. But let's click on the icon, and we'll bring up a Saturn price line. We're going to change the parameters a bit here. We'll set this at geocentric, and also I think we will change the color a little bit. We'll make it a little bit darker so it'll show up a little more clearly on the screen, and for that matter we'll make it just a little bit thicker as well. We exit here and we exit here, and it'll pop up the Saturn line for us. And as we can see here in current trading conditions, Saturn has in fact been playing a key role. The price of IBM has tracked down to a major increment of this Saturn line and then gapped over it and declined sharply at that point. So a very bearish technical combination, but it's really reacting to the Saturn line. And if we go back here into the summer months of 2004, summer and fall there, we'll note that IBM had been finding support on the Saturn line. It had met resistance on that line in late 2003, early 2004, and at a couple of other points. Saturn has proven to be critical in the relatively short price history, the 5 years or so that we have displayed on the screen at this point. It in fact has gapped over a Saturn line on a couple of occasions, as we can see here on the left side of the screen. So Saturn definitely plays a key role with IBM, but we've been able to identify that by first of all simply examining this list of company data and looking at our list of first trade and incorporation charts to find the one that corresponds with the price chart that we're examining.